lowest sub on earth host. Well, with all that being said, thank you for joining me for another episode. If you're new to this is a podcast that I put out every week. And it's just about the Enneagram and how it is probably the one best, most helpful tools to see within ourselves to make the bad good and the good better. So, before I tell you what's happening in today's show, you've probably seen a little bit about it in the title and everything. But before I go there and get a little bit more specific about everything that we're going to talk about, let me just tell you about me, what's kind of happening lately. So, at the time that we're recording this episode, it's early May, and so one of the things that I just recently started doing is, of course, I have a newsletter, and one of the things I've started doing is I started sending out this like special, in-depth look, personal reflection that kind of gives the subscribers, the opportunity to see behind the walls that I put up a little bit, to kind of glance into my mind of some thoughts that have been going around in my head lately, different topics, everything. And I call that tea time with Mr. B, because one, I'm a huge fan of sweet tea. I drink enough sweet tea that I don't even know how to analogize it, because that's how much sweet tea I drink. But anyway, because I drink sweet tea a lot, and then also because I like for my students to call me Mr. B, mainly because it makes me feel younger than I really am. I tell them all the time I'm 24, but I feel like I'm 90, and it's a conundrum. But yeah, the newsletter is called that. Well, that campaign is called Tea Time with Mr. B, and like I said, it's just a moment of self-reflection, raw, honest thoughts around topics that I've been thinking about in my head. Some of the topics that I've already typed out and are ready to send are about aspirations, intentional solitude and loneliness, romance. So it's a wide range of topics, from just kind of things that have been a toss up in my head recently. Um, and then another thing that here at this second week of May, at the time that we're recording this, one thing that has happened is the E&E Collective registration has just opened up, and so I'm trying to get people to join for that, which is trying to think when this episode would air. I believe by the time you're hearing this, it's going to be too late for the founders. But if it's not too late for the founders, that is $50 a year, and founders are essentially my right hand people. They are people who get a lot of benefits, such as one-to-one Zoom meetings with me, unlimited. They get to be the voice of this group going into the future, kind of like the sounding board, and get to really shape and form how this group is going to go in the future and the things it's going to do. And there's something else that they get to. They get exclusive trainings that I'll be creating throughout the year, and so they get to do that, as well as founders get the opportunity to lead the whole group of the collective. And also, as the collective grows, my idea is to branch off to smaller groups, and so they'll have the training and knowledge necessary to lead those as well. So, plus, I'm adding more perks as the collective grows to the founders and the collective and the standard member and everything. So, but founders get a host of things, whereas standard members only get 5 one-to-one Zoom meetings with me a year. Then they only get access to Discord servers. So their perks are limited right now, but theirs will grow as well as time goes on. But yeah, and also I know I said this a lot in previous episodes, but like I said, I say this pretty much every week. We're at the round out of the school year, and it's kind of honestly, I'm feeling a little terrified because school is ending and I don't know how I'm gonna pay the bills yet. So, of course, there's summer school that I intend to sub for, but summer school doesn't start until June, and so that's about 2 weeks in May, early June. And I'm like, if I don't get another job, I'm gonna be in limbo there. But it will all work out. It always does. So, but Anyway, that's just a little bit of what's happening in my life recently. Uh, and what I want to say about today's show is that you are in for a treat, um, because I am talking with Christa Hardin, and I have the wrong notes pulled up real quick, so I've got to fix that. All right. I am talking with Christa Harding. Again, I had her on the podcast last season, to talk about, I forgot what we talked about. It's going to come to me. It was restoration. The marriage was a topic. So, um, yeah. But today we're talking about meaningful connections during waiting seasons and some practical things that we can do to intentionally intensify or strengthen our sexual one-to-one subtype. So that's the archive today. But before Krista and I jump into our conversation, here's a little bit about Krista for those who might not be familiar with who she is. Krista is an Enneagram 7. She is an Enneagram coach and a marriage and family counselor with her own practice in South Florida. And at the end of last year, she released a new book titled The Enneagram in Marriage, which is a great guide to thriving together in your unique pairing. So, with that being said, let's jump right into the conversation.
Hi.
Hey.
So sorry I was taking a few minutes there. I went to the wrong link first.
Oh, that is fine. I I was I had in my mind that you scheduled for 12, and so I usually shoot all the like intro stuff to the episode 30 minutes early, and so I've just been waiting because
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, I just happened to look at my calendar. I'm like, oh wait, that's at 12:30, not 12. So
Yeah.
it's like I just started off early today.
Oh my gosh, you got an early start. Well, that's good. And I'm so glad it was downloaded and everything. You did such a good job of preparing me. So thank you so much. I
I
actually haven't
appreciate it.
worked on this platform that much.
Oh well, it's a pretty simple one.
Okay, great.
Um, it's pretty much like Zoom. It's
Okay.
just made more specifically for podcasting and online. So um,
Okay,
it has a
great.
lot better clarity than Zoom. So I love it.
That is good to know. I've been on a lot of platforms, and this one either rarely, or never, and so I thought I was familiar with it, but there's a couple of others, and I can't remember their names right now, but, I'm happy to hear it because some of the others, they do glitch a lot, and I'm like, "Zoom is better." So I
Yeah.
like hearing you say this one is actually better.
Which I haven't had a glitch yet, but I just started using it this time around. So
Yes. Well, I'm
I
happy to
haven't had problems
redo if
yet. So
anything
so
glitches.
but yeah. So again, let me just say welcome back to the podcast. It's been, I
Thank
was looking at the
you.
dates, and it's been since 2022, almost 2 years. So it does,
Wow.
but it doesn't seem that long since we last talked.
No, it doesn't, and thank you for having me back. This is great.
So um, before we just, let's just, I like to always like just get updates on what's happening in life when I have somebody else back who's been known here before.
Oh,
So just tell me
yeah.
what's happened for you recently in life.
Aw, thank you. Well, I have been just finishing up the kids' school and all their activities, and so I'm now headed into a summer of writing, and
All
that
right.
feels good because then I can have a little bit of focus time.
Yeah.
So there'll be podcasting still on either end, but also just writing, which is really my centering space, a couple of hours a day, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what's going on with me.
I like that. Which, speaking of writing, um, I thought it might be cool before we actually talk about the actual topics of this episode to kind of give a little promo because you wrote a book or released a book at the end of last year,
Yes.
Enneagram
Oh,
and Marriage.
thank
Um,
you.
it's on my list in the Amazon wish list to buy,
You're so
but
sweet. Thank
I am
you.
so behind on all of my reading. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm going to get to at this point, but I'm going to read it one day. Uh, so,
Yes.
but
Well,
can you
if you
just,
ever need me to send you a copy, let me know. If you're like, I'm ready to read it, I will send you one. You don't even have to buy it.
all right, I will appreciate that. Um, so, just what about what is the book about? It's called Enneagram in Marriage, or I have it written down somewhere on my notes. I can
Yep. Yep,
the
that's
Enneagram
right.
marriage. So of course it's about the Enneagram marriage. To tell us a little bit about it. About it.
Well, I wrote this book because I love teaching couples about their personality types. Usually, after the honeymoon stage of a relationship, people get very jaded. They're just
Right.
like, did I meet the right person? I feel very upset by the ways they communicate to me. And I feel like they miss who I really am too. And so when I can teach them about their personality types, it's like they come alive again because they realize their spouse does have gifts that they have forgotten about or discarded, and then that they have their gifts. And yes, they actually see that not only does their spouse have issues sometimes, but that they
Yeah.
do too. And so it's a bit of a ego check, but it's also really good because then we can get to the part about how they have their own unique way of shining in the world together too. So they have their own marriage mission too with their unique light that they cast together.
I like that. So I'm a very futuristic thinking person. So like anytime, especially when it's somebody I've talked to and I know releases a book
Mhm.
on anything that might help me in life down the road, I'm like, yes, I've got to
Yes.
read that. And so
Yes.
even though I am like far from marriage, like nowhere
Okay.
even close to it, uh,
Yes.
but
Oh, that's good you're taking your time. I remember that from last time we talked. You
yeah,
were like, "I'm in the middle of studies and all the moving and everything."
yeah. Well, I like to think of it at this point because it's actually my not being in a relationship has actually taken longer than I would imagine it to. And so I like to think of this point is I'm like the last drop of soda in the can that you just try to
Mhm.
shake out and it won't come out.
Aw, aw.
Shake it out.
Yeah, you're reluctant at this point. Aw.
But I thought that would be a funny analogy to
Yes,
say. But
it is.
so one of the things I'm wondering is like someone like me who could be years or I say years, but we never know when it might happen. The
Mhm.
world works in mysterious ways, so I could end up
Yes.
married by the end of this week. Who knows? But for somebody like me, how might they benefit from reading this ahead of their marriage?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's helpful to read a book on relationships and personality so that you have an inside edge as to how you'll communicate as a partner in the future. Because right now, you know how you communicate as an individual.
Yeah,
But when you can start to look at not just how a type shows up, which we can get from places like Enneagram Institute, I actually talk about how every single type shows up when they're healthy, when they're average health, and then when they're not healthy in a relationship, when they're in dysfunction. And so it's helpful because when you start relationship work, you'll be able to already say, oh my gosh, I can remember this. This is not me healthy. And that's a good check for your ego so you can start doing your work again. And the other piece I would just say to listeners is that when you learn about your conflict style, it can help a lot to say that to a future partner as you get closer to say, as we get closer, something I want you to know is I'm very, for example, logical. And I can tell that you're very passionate. And I know we would need to learn from each other in our conflict style. So it gives you a language to start talking about some more mature concepts a little sooner.
I like that, especially the conflict styles because I can kind of be on the end of either or. Like I have the type of mentality
Mm,
like if you can do something about it, do it. If you can't, don't worry about it. At the
yeah.
same time, I can shift all the way to the left and be like, just shut out. I'm like, it depends on the situation, how long it goes, but so just to know that that is, I want to say, not probably the biggest issue,
Mhm.
but one
Yeah.
of the major issues of marriage, and to have a
Mhm.
book that guides you in understanding that within yourself and also your potential partner be
Mm.
life changing. So I'm definitely going to read it.
Yay!
I've got to get caught up
Yeah,
ahead
take
of
your
all that.
time. In the right timing, it'll find you if it's meant to be. So I
Yeah.
love that we can encourage you on that because you have such a gift of reading. And I remember last time we talked, you had been reading Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown, and that was a gift to me
Yes.
that you shared that.
Well, I appreciate sharing gifts especially when it
Mhm.
comes to reading. Um, I used to
Yes.
be in primary school, elementary school, I was the kid who could read books nonstop. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's because my
Mm.
Tennessee state of Tennessee had us required to read books for like it was called Accelerate Reader, and we had to take a test. I guess I just got burnt out on it, and for like
Yeah.
years I stopped reading. Now I'm like trying to get back into that habit of
Yes.
actually reading consistently.
Mm.
But
Mm. Yeah, that
um,
is good to try.
yeah, so um, trying to see. I kind of
Okay.
had another point come to my mind about the book, but it's not fully formed. So if I think
Yeah.
of it, I'll bring it
Mhm.
back up. But we
Okay.
can. Hey, everybody, I just want to take a quick break from the show to say that I love having conversations with all of my listeners. And one of the ways that I do this is by engaging through social media. And you can follow the podcast at Enneagram Store Podcast on both Instagram and Facebook. I look forward to engaging with you all more on those platforms. Kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about active waiting, which is like the
Mm.
entire like overarching theme that I have for this season of the podcast, and it
Mm.
stems from personal life, but then also um, kind of seeing others who are like in the same boat as where I am. Kind of just
Yeah.
I like to refer to it as a moment of, I would say, the lazy river. Like there's no current, but you're in the
Yeah.
river and you're moving forward and you're just admiring the views on the way. um,
Yes.
so, um, so how would you define active waiting?
Hmm. I love your analogy first. That's a great one because
Thank you.
it really suggests such a trust in the Lord. And I don't always do it like that. I'm not
Me
always
neither.
looking very good. I'm sometimes hanging on the edge of the raft or pushing ahead and
Yes.
then coming back for the raft again, usually I would say. But to be honest, I've had to do a lot of active waiting. So it has made me a bit more patient. And that's good. I can say with time and now being in my 40s, I can see it. And it usually looks like me having big hopes or dreams for myself or my spouse or our children or my clients, like anyone in my close knit community. And then I'll want to push them faster than we can go. And so I have
Yeah.
to allow myself to pace. And that is something even today I had to do with my kids. We brought our calendars out and I got into my, the 378 triad aggressive assertive mode.
Yes.
And I had, okay, do you want to go to this dance camp? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? What about this musical orchestra? I saw they had master classes. And my daughter's like, I don't see that's my season right now. And what I do is I take a deep breath. And I'm like, but you're such a gifted pianist. Like, and then I'm just like,
Yes.
ragged breath, of just like, okay, so sometimes it's like, you know what? This gift is going to be a familial gift for her or for my own writing, something where I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this chapter, but then I want to write my next book. And my agent will remind me, like, promote this book. And so these are, like we're hearing each other kind of say, like,
Yeah.
sometimes active waiting means other people helping you to actively wait.
Ooh. I, ooh. Never thought of it that way. I am going to write that down because that is good. That's going to become like, I'm gonna have to get that on a sign. Active waiting, sometimes allowing other people helping us wait.
Yeah,
That's
that's
deep.
being honest, right? Because yeah, I do it too. Sometimes I learn, and I told another daughter that yesterday. I was like, we can be patient with this. We're not
Yeah.
in a rush to get your computer. We can wait. But it's like, even that was a bit hard. But like, yeah, she had to wait for me, right? To tell her. She wanted to push. So I do love that you and I can relate that it's not always this perfect way of us learning. It's God or somebody else sometimes just enforcing that waiting.
Yeah. Ooh. We can stop the episode right there. That was that was the one liner of all time. You got me reeling
Yeah,
right here. I'm like trying to come back
yeah.
from that moment.
You're so fun. I love it.
You hit me right there. It's like one of those things that's true, but it's a knife in the heart. Like, yeah, I could use that. Um, so
Oh, good. I hope it blesses you.
you brought up talking about, you mentioned the assertive, and that's true. 3, 7, 8s are assertive types and go getters. Um,
Mhm,
and you're 7, right?
mhm, mhm,
And so
mhm.
on the aspect, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, on the aspect of your 7 is like moving. I'm trying to remember which the lines of movement for 7s. I should probably get my cheat sheet out, but
Okay.
is 7s is, are they to 4 in stress, or I
We
remember
go to 1 in
1.
stress.
So and then
Mhm.
it's
To 5 in
5,
health.
5 in health. So
Yeah.
like in that movement along those lines, during the moments of active waiting, how has that, like, those shifts kind of, I want to say, manifested in reality
Mhm.
for you?
Hmm. That's a great question. I would say for the 1, it's I can get really critical when I'm anxious for somebody to learn something.
Mm,
Uh, Even myself, I can get critical. So just whether it's to myself, "Oh, you should have known this," or to, my child or my partner, just, "You should have." There's that negative critic going, "You should."
yeah,
And instead, I try to come at it from a more loving parent and encouraging parent, because I know the 1 has a big super ego, Freudian language, a bit, but just this parent part of me that says, "Do this. This is good for you." So I try
right,
to use that language with myself and my family instead of you should have done that and then adding shame into it. So I noticed that dynamic with my type 4 daughter. If I come at it with shame, she'll take the shame on. And then I have to backtrack and say, don't take any shame on. I'm just trying to encourage you and help you to learn something. And I'm aware that you might need to grieve something before you can move on from it. So it's kind of learning, how do I not project shame onto others with my 1? And then with my 5 is a lot better at waiting. And thankfully, that's where I go in health. And that's a space of taking my time. And when I hit a wall, just actually pausing at the wall, breathing at the wall, and then trying to figure it out and systematize at the wall until I can get through the wall. So that's where I try to stay in that focus space, or troubleshooting. Just like, hey, it's okay if it's not perfect. Keep learning, keep growing.
yeah.
It's not that the 1 is a bad space for waiting. It's just, um, I often go to the negative part of that, and if I go to the positive, I more go to a place of, adding margin into my life to say, like, "You're allowed to wait and even wait on not doing it all. Just stay home and get ordered before you go out into the world."
Oh, I like that. It's just nugget after nugget of goldness. You said margin. I'm like, yeah, that's a good way to put that. That's
Mm,
also that's something myself I have kind of like been dealing with too lately, is like
mm,
learning that it's okay to allow, like, uh, space between the moments of life, not
mm,
rushing to the next thing. So
mhm.
I
Yeah,
like
good.
how you said that as the margin. Um,
Yes.
just so many good things today, Krista. And we're
Oh, so
just at the
glad.
start, at this,
Thank you,
come on.
Braylon. Well, you ask great questions. What can we do? You're an inviting host.
Well, I appreciate that. I was kind of scared because I'm like, I'm at this point where, like, I've written so many notes out for this podcast. I'm running out of questions. I'm like, oh, this one
Yeah.
is a good one.
Yeah,
Um,
that's okay, and we
but
can
but
take our
then,
time on it
yeah,
too if you're like, "I have another one," or you can let me know if there's, like, something I
yeah,
wanna add, so don't ever feel pressure.
yeah, yeah. You can always jump in at any time. I know I tend to,
Mm,
like, talk fast sometimes, so just
no.
say something, and that I'll recognize it.
Oh my gosh, no, you're
And
great.
it's just one of those things, like, because I asked this question to everybody about what does active waiting mean to them, because that, like I said, that's the theme of
Mm,
this entire season. So I'm like, I need to know that. So, but then
mhm.
we've got to go deeper, and I mean, you
Mm,
have taken me deeper. Margin
mm.
and waiting with people, you have
Good.
done it.
Oh,
So
good. I'm so glad.
I kind of just I don't know. I'm like,
Yeah.
if we could just, but we got to go deeper. There's so much right there. I'm like, oh, but so kind of moving. Like I said, we're going deeper. I like to go deep. Um,
Good.
Kevin Hart has. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I think it seems a good time. But
Mhm.
Kevin Hart has this show on Peacock TV that it's called Heart to Heart that he does with famous people, kind of talking about their journey, and I just love it because it's heart to
Mm.
heart about their moments.
Love
Like,
that.
I wish I had a name as catchy as his because it just works
Yeah.
for
I
heart to heart.
know. It does, and he's so funny. Oh my gosh, I gotta
So
watch that.
it's great. Um, I know he does Will Smith, Will Ferrell,
Oh my
Jay
god.
Z, Miley Cyrus, and a lot of great people. So just to
Ooh,
hear their stories, it's just
mhm.
like Tyler Perry does when I'm like, I'm a huge Tyler Perry fan. Like
Funny.
I've been
Yeah.
watching his stuff since I came out the womb, and just to
Yeah.
hear his story still, it's like,
Mm.
yes, gotta go, gotta get it. But
Mm. Ooh, that's good. Now you've got me wanting to watch it really bad.
oh yeah, you gotta. It's on Peacock TV, and Peacock is free, so you don't have to sign up for. I mean, you have to sign up to access it, but it's not another Windows paid one. So I like that one.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I kind of went off on rabbit trail there,
Oh, no, that's okay.
completely.
I'm a 7. I'm okay with that.
So I don't even know where. Like, I don't even know where I was going with that, but
Oh,
hey,
no, it's
maybe it
okay.
was just me trying the spirit trying to bless you with another thing. So
Yeah,
who
thank
knows?
you, because
So
my kids love Kevin Hart, and I do too, so that yeah, exactly.
so you never know. Um, but kind of moving a little bit more deeper, like I said, talking about meaningful connections. So one of the things that I have been doing recently is engaging in what I like to call intentional solitude, and
Mhm.
I mean, it's exactly what it says. Like really, just putting myself away. Um, and I got the
Mm.
whole idea of really from monks in a monastery. I don't know why.
Mm.
Just the past couple of years, I've been drawn to that idea. I'm like, I really need to find a monastery to go to and become a monk. I don't want to shave my head, so
Yes.
I'm just gonna do
Ah.
my own little version. And so I've been doing really just at my
Mm.
apartment. Besides going to work and going out for errands and everything. And so it's really that intentional solitude and just really reflecting.
Yeah.
But during this
Good.
time, one of the things that I have realized is that I lack meaningful human connection for many
Mm.
reasons. But the biggest
Mhm.
reason is emotional avoidance. That's avoidance that is built off of a childhood experience of
Mhm.
not wanting to experience that pain that I felt then anymore. And so,
Mhm.
say all that to kind of
Mhm.
round back to this question: how might someone find meaningful connections um, during their seasons of waiting?
Mm. I think that everyone will need different levels. Some of us are more social instinct. Some of us will need a lot if that's who we are potentially. And then others of us will just need just a little bit, and others maybe moderate amounts. So I think just knowing and kind of asking in times of solitude or journaling, what am I looking for personally for that will be a good guiding question. What am I looking for personally, especially in the guideline of time? So I know, okay, I'm looking for 1 hour a week or maybe up to 40, and different jobs will make people feel differently too. So when you're waiting, the second piece outside of finding how much time you want to occupy would be to do something good that you like to do that's creative and distracting for you while you're waiting. So it could be finding a project that you're really going to invest in that's interesting and, like I said, meaningfully creative, or it might be that you decide to hone in on fitness and wellness. Maybe you're low on your self preserving instinct. Maybe you say, I'm going to be listening to podcasts on a certain topic. But really, the key standout to me is getting creative and learning with whatever time you have. And if you need more social time within that waiting, find other people who are waiting. So find other people who are, if you're single, find other people who are single and waiting that, you feel like we get it. We're in the same
Yeah.
boat, or we're writers who haven't published a book yet, but we meet every month to talk about it. And it helps us to have something to say. Did you contact that agent? So I just feel like being with people, but also still developing your own creativity can help you a long way from getting bored and feeling hopeless.
Yeah. So speaking of creativity, I am an entrepreneur by nature. So
Hmm.
a question I would have to hear your opinion on is, because one of the things that I do a lot is I'm great at a lot of stuff, but
Hmm.
I end up taking my hobbies and try to make money from them. And so they
Hmm.
become less hobbies and more business stuff.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, how are, not really, I guess, opinion, but also advice wise, what would you encourage someone to keep that distinct difference in the two with?
Mm. Mhm. I would allow yourself a Google Doc or a palette of sorts, whatever space you're in, a piece of clay, whatever it is that you're doing that you say, I'm going to take one or two mediums and just give myself a couple of hours a week to be creative and play. And it may be that this is not an issue that has to be so polarized that after a while of working at it, it may turn into something that you do sell. But I think that it's really better when you can allow yourself to just say, I have integrity with myself and I made a vow to myself that I will not do that at least for a while, and give yourself a time frame. Like, I'm just going to give myself 6 months to work on my creative writing every Saturday morning at Starbucks for 2 hours. That's it. That's my time, and I'm not trying to do anything with it for these 6 months. I'm just having fun, and maybe in the back of my mind I'm hoping it'll sell. But just knowing that you're allowed to do that might be the first part of that work, because in that space of 8, 9, and 1, I want to be right and good. You might also need to just say it is also right and good to have rest and to
Yeah.
have creativity and flow, versus we all know that we can't create in the same way when we're in a flow state than we can create in the same, like when we're in this entrepreneurial space of I have to do it. It's different. And you will, maybe, like I said, because you gave yourself that differential, you're allowed to do it and it's going to be better. Later, it might come out and you can say that, like, hey, by the way, this is actually better. So if that punitive super ego adult starts to get at you, say, this is the better way to get something really good anyway, if I do decide after the 6 month time to sell it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I like how you said put a timeline to it, because that has never been something that I've considered. Saying, hey, for, like you said, 6 months, this is purely
Mhm.
for me to get the enjoyment out of it, and not to try to like sell it. So I like, and
Mm.
it may not be, for somebody like me who's so easy to monetize everything. You might have to take it
Mhm.
slowly. It might start at a 2 day goal, and then increase that to
Mm.
maybe a
Mhm.
year.
I
Um,
love that. That's a really great start. Just a couple days of sitting on it, and
yeah,
that's really neat, and I want you to feel freedom to still take your other ideas and move forward with them. Like, this is
yeah,
the only one. It's like the forbidden fruit, not this
yeah.
idea. This one stays here for a while until God releases it.
Yeah, and I also like how you said the word "allow" when you were talking about that, because when you said that, it it, it drove me to think about how shame of not being where you would idealize you should be at this point in life might
Mhm.
stop you from experiencing joy from your hobbies and things, and wanting to pursue them to make you
Mm.
more successful. And so that
Mhm.
was just a sweet
Mhm.
invitation to
Mm.
sit with yourself and be
Mhm.
authentic, and not try to be the, I don't know how to say it, the social media aspect of yourself is the best way I can think of it right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for that vulnerability.
well, It's been a work.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I would tell you that that level of vulnerability, heck, we done this heck last week. I probably would
Mm-hmm.
never say any of that stuff.
Oh, I'm so
So it's
yay! You're doing your work
it's
and it's showing.
well, I thank you because I was questioning, is it working?
Mm.
So it's good to know, good to see that
Mm-hmm.
you see that it's working.
Oh yeah, it is.
Because like I'm doing all this, but I don't know if it's it's one of those things like it
Mm-hmm.
seems like it's working, but you don't know if
Mm-hmm.
it is. It's like
Yeah.
that. It's like the remote of the TV. Somehow I'm going to another analogy here. It's just I don't know. It's my way my brain works. I'm a visual thinker, and so it's like when you
Mm-hmm.
have the remote to your TV and you try and turn it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not working. Then you find out all I needed was new batteries. So it's
Yeah, that's a great
so,
analogy. Yes,
but
you got me.
so moving from well, not moving a little bit from it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how I said it in the email to you. I think I said it as intensifying the sexual type or maybe strengthening the sexual type. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I really, it's really more the idea of strengthening it. I really like the word intensify because it sounds much more intense. It
Mm-hmm.
just sounds better in my opinion for this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
uh, the sexual type for me um, has
Mm-hmm.
always been the weakest one.
Mm-hmm.
Social, self-pres, and then sexual. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I know why because I'm just
Mm-hmm.
not a very emotional person again from childhood
Mm-hmm.
trauma, which is
Mm-hmm.
another reason why I like the Enneagram because it's shown me so much about
Yeah.
childhood trauma. I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that happened, but all right. uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the sexual type has always been the weakest, and since you are a marriage and family
Mm-hmm.
counselor, I thought it would be you are the expert to kind of help me and anybody else who might be in the same boat understand practical, like everyday things, or just like mental uh, ideas that we can think about to help strengthen, intensify that subtype.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Mm.
yeah, you can talk about it in a general way, or if you want to, if it will be easier to like do type by type. I don't know how you want to do it, but I'm good with either
Okay.
way.
I think it'd be great to do it by some general, and then maybe if it's okay to do by the intelligence centers. That be
That's
okay?
good. Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Okay. Because somebody, Enneagram Restored, I know you've done a great job, and many of your listeners can probably relate to that. That they're like, yes, I'm a heart type, and
Yeah.
all that.
So I'm gonna let you
Um,
take it away. 'Cause I
ah,
talk a lot. I feel like I've just been rambling on. So I'm gonna give you the floor, and we can just I'll just interject every now and then. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're a great host. And I would just say to everybody that if you're feeling that the sexual instinct has been just waylaid to the side for trauma reasons or for just practical reasons, like I know my college student daughters are like that right now, like it's just not the time for that to be big right now. I just want to affirm that you do not have to rush it. And that I even have a client in their 40s who's enjoying their life and having meaningful relationships. Time Magazine put out an article about that recently that some people want to be single. So, just to put that out there, that even biblically, Paul talks about that. So, there's no rush, and we don't have to pretend you're somebody you're not, first and foremost. Because one of my daughters will probably put on airs a bit more as she gets older, and the other one I know is going to be content to stay who she is and be almost adamant that she won't be picked because of her sexual prowess.
yeah,
So that too will shift between us. And I'll talk a little bit about that with triads in a minute in intelligence centers, head, heart, and body. But for general, like I said, just don't rush for this, unless you're like, I want to do this because I am ready. and I feel like the waiting period is getting over and I'm really ready to walk into that more. Um, so I think that the other part of it is the sexual instinct that you can work on, even if you're not ready to date or marry, or even if you're married and you're like, we're just not interested in that area. Um, or I'm not, is you can remember that the sexual instinct's not just about sex, but merging and
Right.
attracting. And so you might be doing some of that well. Some of you might be just noticing that you're really not the best with the sexual instinct. Like, say, any of your listeners that might be married, for them, they might not be having any sex. And they might be like, I'm not very good at that, or things aren't working correctly. Or they might not feel like they know how to flirt and do foreplay, and that's something that I want them to know. Super normal. A lot of people grew up in purity culture within the church and just didn't get the chance or the tools. And now we have great books by an author named Sheila Wray Gregoire, who's an Enneagram 8, and she's helped us to see, and others, but especially her and Jay Stringer are two names that come to mind for people who have done some really good work on helping those with a latent sexual instinct to feel better about how to activate that in healthy ways in marriage or preparing for marriage. But then also the other piece of that is attracting, not just merging sexually, but attracting and being good at deep conversations. So you might say, I'm actually good at that part already, or you might need work there too. And if it's deep conversations, you can do things like this where you practice with interviews that you do, conversations you're having where you really try to be an active listener and listen for the nonverbals in a deep way of the people around you. We do know that nonverbals are such a big part of our connection and chemistry. So just taking a deep breath and being brave to ask, oh, it looks like you might have had a tough day. Are you doing well? Not like, are you tired? But like,
Yeah.
my daughters hate when that happens, but like just somebody who cares, just being somebody who cares and is thoughtful versus just wanting to be the talker. And just being a good present listener will be part of that sexual instinct waking up. And then the last thing on this part of our general conversation, you might have some comments too, but is I just wanted to say, when it does come to like the flirting, the drawing, the attracting, is kind of noticing what are your boundaries within that and what are the fun things. So you might say, okay, it's the season, I want to date. Then you might say, okay, I'm going to find my favorite cologne or perfume. I'm going to put it on, not in extravagant amounts if you're a guy, because we know that that actually can turn women off. If they feel a man's scent is too strong, they might feel he's trying to spread his genes everywhere. But just a couple squirts. For women, they can lavish on. That's not usually indicated. But to just allow yourself to notice your appearance and to, if there's any scars around that, like you shouldn't have any, don't be vain, don't care at all. It's kind of understanding it's okay to want to be attractive and healthy. Don't go over the top with it, but
Right.
allow yourself to remember when Jesus says, don't be focusing so much in on your bodily looks. He's saying like long term looks fade, so don't overdo there. But it's also okay to be attractive. And we hear that in Song of Songs, where these two Christian lovers are really fawning over each other and finding each other beautiful and intensely so. And so that's not bad to be really hoping to attract in the right season. So just allowing these thoughts to generate of I'm not bad or wrong for wanting to attract. You might experiment with makeup if you're a woman who that feels like it makes you look attractive. Um, and also noticing that at different times of the month, women are more attractive. They just are. Even when we smell their clothing, we have studies that tell us that around ovulation, they're more attractive. And so it's kind of noticing it's okay for me not to have the same levels of attraction or desires all month. But when I do, and if I'm seeking a mate or to be stronger in my marriage, then I can put on a few airs in my own comfort ways.
Yeah.
So those are some general tips.
Yeah, I like how you are saying like be in your comfort because uh, a lot of what I notice, especially now since we have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all this stuff, it seems like when it comes to dating, we feel like we have to live up to this expectations of our appearance. And honestly, sometimes people can push themselves past that comfort level for themselves. And so,
Mhm.
it's,
Mhm.
I like how you're saying allow yourself to experiment, and maybe cologne isn't your thing, or
Mhm.
maybe makeup isn't your thing. But
Yes.
when you find
Yes.
out, allow yourself to still live confident with or without it. So,
Yes, and knowing that we do see people now saying, "Oh, this person was kind of like, showing me." I always, I saw this, I think yesterday, but they're like, "I just only saw them when they were fake." And so when it was actually them, they looked completely different because of
yeah,
the generated AI. So
yeah,
know that that's gonna come back for you. So you wanna make sure people see you how you really are too. Just
yeah,
like I said, my one daughter is very intent on that. She just doesn't wanna play around. And my other one isn't trying to be rude. It's just she's like, "Oh, I feel comfortable both ways. I love it because most young ladies I see now, they're showing tons of their pimples, and it's something that and, when I was a teenager, we didn't feel as much permission for,
yeah,
and it's just so beautiful to see. There's a lot even though we see more social media fakeness, we're also seeing people being more comfortable with who they are. So I would say make sure you're comfortable with who you are, but don't feel afraid to also say, I'm allowed to both look wild and untamed a little bit, but also at other moments, I can show up and show off and my, attracting. Think about the birds outside, right? Who are mating, and we're so much more valuable than they even, but they open their wings and show off. But at other times,
right.
they're just eating and doing their thing.
And I think a lot of it can stem from like, they say you end up like dating, so like males end up dating a different version of their mother, and then the girls end up dating a different version of the fathers. And honestly, I can see that works because like for me, I've
Mhm.
never like when females wear makeup that a little bit I'm okay with, and but like
Mhm.
the more the
Mhm.
less attracted I am. So I'm like usually attracted to
Mhm.
females who wear little to no makeup. And so, and I think that's because my mother was never a makeup person. So, you know,
Oh.
it's also seeing like those things right there. What
Mhm.
can you do? So,
I
and
love that. Yeah, she modeled authenticity is great. You wanna be real together.
yeah. So, um, when you're ready to move on, I am. We can
Okay.
stay as long, or we can go as short as you want.
Aw, thank you. Well, I'm so glad. I love talking about the groups of types because the 3 primary Enneagram types that you see in the middle of the triangle, if you ever look at an Enneagram diagram, you see the 3, the 6, and the 9. And the 3, along with 2 and 4, is the heart type. So if you're a 2, 3, or 4 listener, you probably know that you're a heart type. And then we had that 6, and the 5, 6, and 7 are the thinking types. And then we have our 9 and the 8, 9, and 1 are our body or gut types. And so that 3, 6, and 9 are sort of what I think of as the primary colors of the Enneagram and the primary head, heart, and body spaces. And wherever we're at on that, there's going to be a bit of a different way that our sexual instinct can show up. So I like to talk about it from that lens, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, I
So
never realized that too. So I'm glad you brought it up that way.
yes. Ah, well, yeah. So I'll start with the body types 8, 9, and 1. Sometimes when we get into our sexual instinct in that space, we can feel like we have to merge so completely that we feel like I really want to make sure we're aligned on every single value. And that can be very intense for a partner because there's a seed of judgment within that, as usually whatever my values are, just because that's how we're comfortable as humans. It's hard to change our values. If you have a value
Right.
for faith or compassion, you're not going to want to leave that. But what I think 8, 9s, and 1s can project is that their partner has to be equally as strict on those morality pieces as them and share all of them. And I think just for our 8, 9, and 1 listeners, something I would remind you is your spouse has values that you don't yet have that they can share with you too. Like one of my couples I saw this morning, one of them was raised very strictly as a 1. So his value was for like, we need to look good and we need to look fit.
Right.
And that's like a very strong sexual desire, and the partner was able to say, I bring you lightness, I bring you joy. And it was a two, I don't feel as strict about that. And that was good for them to embrace their value of fun. They like to go to amusement parks. They live in Ohio. They like to go to Cedar Point. So it's something that we can learn if we're a body type, is that your spouse has values you don't yet have. Also, they may not share all of your values. So you can try to share your version of rightness with them. But just remember not to fully dominate them in that desire to attract, allow them to be who they are and to teach you also, and allow boundaries. Sometimes in our sexual instinct, we can feel like because we're trying to merge, that we're leaving boundaries out of it. And I just want you to know a 8, 9, or 1 can chase a spouse away if they don't remember that boundaries are part of it all too, in diplomacy. So, and even some compassion, those are 3 elements I try to bring in often so that people can say, okay, I have a very strong value for, say, environment, and I'm a 9. And I found my right action, and this is it. This is my hill I'm going to be on. And just allowing yourself to say, okay, maybe sometimes my spouse joins me in that, but maybe they also aren't as frantic to do it. And that's okay because they have other gifts. So it's, 9s don't always speak their judgment, but they still have it. So it's a good thing for them to work on, is we can merge on some things, but we can also still have some of our own individuality and have some boundaries. And I can have some compassion even as I try to teach them. So that's what I would say to body types, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I love it. Um, I had a thought, but I lost it, so I'm gonna
Oh,
just let you go ahead.
well, if you come back to it, let me know.
Oh, I will.
Okay. You're a good listener. That's why. Okay. So as we go into the thinking types, a lot of thinking types have the intensity, those 5s, 6s, and 7s, of feeling like they hope that everybody will want to plan for the sexual instinct in the way they do. They're hoping that their partner will want the same amount of detailed, just almost a fixation on that planning in the way they do. Like, let's plan for fun, let's plan for the future, let's plan for disasters, and let's all agree on it. And then they have a family, as we talked about earlier, because I'm in this group. And then you realize, no, they won't have all the same desires
Right.
and dreams as me. And that's very hard. For it's not as much about our values as our plans. And so in our merging desires, we're hoping that we just feel it, that we can keep everyone safe if they just do exactly what we have planned. And when we are over the top with that sexual instinct, it's kind of interesting how some people call that instinct the kill or be killed instinct, because we can kill a relationship really fast. And if they want to do something else, something we thinking types can say is like, you know, that's gonna go really bad because I've already played it out and I've already projected it and sequenced it negatively extremely quickly, and that's gonna fail. And it's just a lack of faith to go with our passion for our planning. That's the problem. So, allowing your partner to have their own plans can actually surprise us, and we can find ourselves lighter and less analytical and less intense when we let up on those plans that we're so obsessed with in our sexual instinct. And we can realize, I'm going to kill this relationship. Here was my desire that we would overcome, that we would lead the way. And instead, I killed us by over planning. And so it's just a good word, I think, for us, that in our zeal, we can absolutely torch the relationship.
Oh yes, I love this word seal just to say that because I've had it written down. I have all
Mm.
4 of my kids' names. Whenever I get married, I'm like, my wife's gonna have no say in the names. I have them all planned out already, and one of them is Harmony Zeal Williams. I'm like, that's the favorite one right there. But that's
Oh,
besides
that's
the point. Um,
beautiful.
but I like how that everything you just said kind of also went back to what we were talking about earlier when
Mm.
we're like allowing people to help us wait. It's that same idea of allowing somebody to help us in that moment of growing and not, like you said, planning or planning things, but not like overtaking, allowing help from your
Mm,
partner to come in and really form that
mm,
relationship together.
mhm.
So I just thought
Yeah.
that was a nice tie back. I don't know if you meant that or not, but I saw that
Oh, thank
relation.
you. It kinda came to me in the middle. I'm like, "This has to do with the waiting, that
Yeah.
we can't always have our way," and it can be really scary for a thinking type to give up that version of control. We may say
Right.
to ourselves, "Oh, I don't mind at all," like this, like, Wes, my husband, has the gift of, social giving, and I might say, "That sounds great, Wes. I've got it planned for you to do that on Friday morning." Get that? So
Yeah.
I'm honoring the value. That's not my problem. I'm not a body type, but I'm trying to be in charge of when he does it. So that he's of course a type 1 who's like, "No, I'm doing it on Tuesday," you know? So I'm like, so
I
I've
love
already
that.
worked that out why that's not a good idea, Wes, you know? So so we have to kind of work together, and sometimes I'm right and sometimes he's right. So but sometimes often, I'm going to say more often than not, I have to just bring that to God. Whatever fear has erupted of the moment. I won't even say the day, I'll say the
Yeah.
moment.
And I really, you just said something else that brought up another good point is, you said sometimes he's right, sometimes you're right.
Mhm,
And that's just a human nature. We always,
mhm,
no matter our type, we all want to be right. That's just our
mhm,
innate human nature.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so
I
it's
love
that
that.
idea of, I'm going to equate it to the same thing as like the yin yang type of thing. Sometimes, black
Yeah,
is right, sometimes white is right. And that sounds wrong, but now that I think about
yeah.
it, but um, it's that balance of forces, really, um,
Mhm,
that symbol
mhm.
teaches us. So, uh,
It does, yeah, and sometimes it is left or right, and exactly, and sometimes it's a both, but,
yeah,
sometimes there really is a right, and so there is a reality. There is a
yeah,
reality even if there's opinions.
yeah. One of my favorite TV shows, Psych, is an old show. Uh, and there's like, I wouldn't say a mini series within the series about the
Yeah.
Ying killer,
Mhm.
about that serial killer. I don't know if you ever seen it. I should
I
probably.
love that. Oh my gosh, I'll tell you a funny story about Psych after this, so tell me. We saw
Okay,
that episode.
but one I've been on this binge of free watching Psych. I don't know why. It's been a thing. But recently, one of the times I watched that episode, I realized, speaking of that symbol, that there's a white dot in the black, and then a black dot in the white one. So it's like
Mm.
even to that balance, there's still some of it integrated into the
Yeah.
opposite one. I just thought that was a
I
good thing to say right now. So,
Yes, that shows you how your people rub off on you, you
oh yeah.
know? Yes.
But now I want to hear the story about Psych because I'm a Psych
Oh.
head.
Yeah, well, you might have seen this, before or, if I've talked about it on Instagram or somewhere, but, I know your listeners haven't, but my son had gotten an acting job. He's just 12 years old and he made a little bit of money. And it was so sweet because him and his dad are psych lovers. Um, and he saw that I cannot remember, you might know the name of the star. Not Sean, but the other one.
um,
Um, I can't remember his name.
the, the,
An unusual name.
the, I forget how you pronounce it. I think it's
Yeah.
Duel or Dule Hill, something like
Yes,
that.
Lay Hill. Yes.
Um,
Yes, and he plays Gus on the show,
right.
and so my son used his money to buy my husband a hello from Dewey Hill. It was so
Oh,
sweet. It was a video hello, we just did it last week,
oh,
and it was so sweet, and he goes, "Hi, Wes." He's like, "Your son Jack wanted you to have this hello," and it was just so sweet.
I love that.
Yeah, so yeah, that's for sale if anyone ever wants to do something creative like that for their loved one.
I love that. I'm gonna have to connect with your husband and son now because my love for pineapples has stemmed from that show. Um, so I actually have a pineapple picture on my wall.
Oh
So I'm
my
like,
gosh, that's cool. Well, if you DM me, I will send you the video from what he shared.
all right. So, but yeah, there's I could go on all day talking about psych, but
Yeah,
that's
me
not the
too,
reason
but
we're
I
here.
know. Our heart types are waiting. They want attention, and that's a good
So
place to start, right? Because heart types
yeah.
love attention. And we love you guys because you make the world a warm place and so beautiful and so connective. And we were sharing earlier, I mean, here I am a thinking type, you're a gut type. This is an instinct that comes natural to heart types because they are relational. So they want to merge, they want to love, they want the attention. And so for them, the sexual instinct bringing it out might actually mean watching to see if it's already very intense, just to be honest. Are you already merging so much that you're codependent? And for them, often it's the other side. I loved your analogy
Right.
of the yin yang. It's like you may need to take a few steps back and give people a bit of space so that there's something in the relationship world we call the pursuer distancer cycle, that you actually become a little bit of the distancer. And that's the way relationship work. I had a 5-2 couple once say that to me, but this is just everybody, but he named it because he was a 5, and he said, I love playing in my marriage, and so I love being pursued sometimes, and I love when she kind of lets me pursue. It's this back and forth hide and seek, and it's not, he's a very healthy person, he doesn't do it to manipulate. It's just knowing that the sexual instinct, it can be thought of as only merging, but it's actually not. It's actually pursuer distancer and knowing how to hide and when to come out. So that's my tip for heart types, is show up with some self-esteem and self-confidence and some boundaries. And then when you do come in, it's going to be even more intoxicating and arousing because people love the true warmth that is you, but they also will respect you more if they see that you know how to take care of you and wait. Back to waiting again.
Oh yeah. I was telling it was Meredith last week. Yeah. I was like,
Mm.
I don't know where I got this idea of active waiting in the Enneagram, but I just feel like it's the
Mhm.
right. It just feels right to talk about it right now. I don't know why, but
Yes,
it
it
just feels
does.
like
You're on
everything is working
point.
together. Um,
Yes, it is.
but so I should probably told you this at the very start, but one of the things that I found out about myself, I remember because you said was talking about our types, and yeah, last time we talked, I identified as an 8, but I
Mhm.
have come to realize that I misidentified, and now I identify as a 3.
Oh my
And so,
gosh, fascinating.
so yeah, uh, there was a lot of soul
Yeah.
checking, and even still, it took a lot of work to get to that point. Because,
Mhm.
excuse me, I'm like, I don't know about this. I think I'm an 8 for sure. But I think it was just
Mm.
me wanting to be an 8 because 8s are so like hard headed. I was
Mm.
telling I forget who it was, but I was telling somebody they seem like the bad A of the Enneagram types, and so I'm like,
Yeah.
who wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
But and even
Yeah.
still, as I'm telling you this, there's a subconscious thought saying I possibly still could be an 8, and so there's a whole battle. But battle aside,
Yeah.
um, where I was going with that is one of the things I realized is that because you mentioned the pursuer and distancer, um, one of the things I realized is that as a 3, I can tend to do this, and that is be so pursuant, but as soon as I try to pursue relationships, no matter if it's a platonic or romantic one, I can, from trauma, uh, distance myself immediately again
Mm.
because it's like
Mm.
craving that relationship, but also not wanting
Mm.
to experience heartbreak and pain from
Yeah. Mhm.
previous relationship trauma. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's good that you're in that pre-contemplation or contemplation stage of like, "Hey, I'm watching the pattern. I'm gonna work on it, but I'm noticing it so that I can be intentional with it."
yeah,
That's really good.
I thought I might say that because like I said, you said pursue a
Mhm.
distancer, and
Mhm.
another thing I never thought of in that language, and you're just giving me
Mm.
so many good language things today. I'm like
Mm.
the
Mm.
dictionary of Christa Hardin right here.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you, Braylon.
So
And I actually was wondering earlier when you said how you struggled with being entrepreneurial and wanting to make it into monetization, I actually said to myself in that moment, I wonder if he has a 3 in his tri-type, because I've heard that from 3s.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny that you did figure that out about yourself, that you have a very strong 3 somewhere in there, probably as the lead type. That's great.
Yeah. And well, I have to give credit to one of my counselors back at Evangel, because she
Hmm.
actually planted the idea in me a long time ago, but I never took out the time to like actually try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I was telling her about my desire to be president one day. She was like, "That sounds like a 3
Mm.
thing. Are you sure an 8?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm an 8. No, I'm not a 3." That's
Oh my
but
gosh, that's a
so
beautiful desire.
had she never said that, I probably would have been an 8 my entire life and been living life wrong. But
Yeah,
uh,
wow. I'm so glad she said that to you, and that's a cool
so
dream.
yeah, but then I also remember it's a large dream. I'm also
Yeah.
like, why does the president's age have to be 35? Because I could run this year and win it. but
Yeah. Yes, you could.
that future aside, again, futuristic thinking, certain types, we're
Mhm,
future
mhm,
thinkers. I think all the
mhm.
certain
Sure.
types
Yep,
I
we
tend to.
are.
But
Mhm, mhm.
yeah, I kind of, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, that's okay.
I do this a lot where I go off rabbit trails and I get lost in my thought too much.
Hey, that's okay. That's why we love our podcast edits, right? Like, I do that too.
Well, I, you say edits. I'm like, I don't even like to edit out. I'm like, people are going to get the raw side of me.
Aw,
I'm like,
that's good. That's your 3 truth teller. I do see
yeah.
the 3 again.
I think it's also maybe because I'm like, editing is just a lot of work. I'd rather
Yeah.
just put a few things in there and then publish it. but
Well, that's
um,
very I like the newer podcast variety, where that is becoming so
yeah,
much more, where people are like raw, uncut. It's so freeing for those of us who are so busy too. It's like,
yeah,
if I want to edit something, I can, but if you're here, I know you're here because you care.
yeah. And I really, honestly, the idea came from one of my favorite podcasters, Kev on Stage. I don't know if you've ever heard of him,
Mm,
but one of his,
mm,
he does like 3 podcasts and um, pretty much tapes them live, and like that's how he pretty much publishes them is like
good.
right there.
Mhm,
They
mhm,
add in,
mhm.
they might edit in some like ads that they read at the end that should have been some at a certain point, but like other than that,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
episodes are pretty much as they were recorded. And then I pay to be on his Patreon, so I get to see him live, which sometimes I don't because being a substitute teacher is kind of hard to watch podcasts in the middle
Oh,
of the day. I'm like,
yeah.
couldn't y'all film this like at 5 o'clock tonight? but
Oh, yes, but that's great.
um,
You're loving on those kids, and then yeah. Oh, that's neat. I love that.
so yeah, another rabbit trail down there.
Yeah.
There was a point somewhere in there. Maybe somebody will catch it who's listening. but let's see.
Mm, it's okay.
I think I've pretty much covered everything that I have written down in my notes. So
Great.
I would say before we like close out on like a little fun thing, is there like words cannot express the amount of gratitude that I have for each and every one of my listeners. So if you would like to support Enneagram Store podcast even more, you can do so by sending a tip by going to enneagrammerstore.com/tip jar. That's enneagrammerstore.com/tip jar. That's ENNEAGRAMMERSTORE.com/TIPJAR. EnneagramRestore.com/tip jar. Anything else that you would add that we possibly haven't talked about yet?
Hmm. I think that just continuing to balance your instincts even after you do kind of ingratiate that sexual instinct more, like just keep coming back to that balance. Like no one is ever going to expect 33.3 for your self-pres, for your social, for your sexual, but like just know that like coming into your sexual instinct does not mean like forsaking your job or your other friendships or your health. Just keep taking care of you, keep taking care of these aspects of merging when it's time. And then also keep socially giving, because that there's so much research that tells us, like substitute teaching, whatever you're doing, sharing your podcast like you're doing, Braylon, like these things are meaningful and they bring joy to not just the sexual instinct. So just that reminder in the waiting.
I like that. So one thing I like to do before I say goodbye to the guests is something that I started doing is I like to play a little bit of either rapid fire questions or would you rather. And I think since we've already talked a bit, I think would you rather is probably the best option for us. So if you're up for it, I have this whole list from actually from a Teen Vogue online article that I take, and so, but I went through and I kind of picked out or try to pick out ones that are like geared towards the guests' type, and so are just
Awesome.
like their personality. So I'm gonna see if I can get you stuck on these choices and make you have
Okay.
to
Oh
choose
my
between
God.
them.
That's hard for a 7.
Yeah.
We want
So
both.
the first one is: would you rather communicate telepathically or know every single language on the planet?
Gosh. Know every single language.
Okay. Would you rather have to watch only Friends reruns or only The Office reruns for the next year?
Oh, The Office. I
I've
want
never
laugh.
seen neither one of them.
Oh! Oh my gosh, The Office is funny.
I've been saying I'm gonna watch it, but I haven't watched it yet.
You might really love it if you like
Yeah.
psych.
Would you rather be oh gosh, I can't talk to it.
Oh
Abducted by aliens or stranded at sea?
my gosh. Stranded at sea. Oh, that's hard. You see my fear there.
It's funny because Tyler like right off the bat said aliens. It's like, really, aliens? I can see why, but I'm also a sea person. I like to be on cruises, even have taken one a long time. I like to see it. So I'm like, I'm hoping everybody picks C, who I get this question to. So you're the first one. So
Good. I'm so glad.
uh,
Yes, I'm with you. I could have my coconut. I could have my
yeah,
sand, my peace.
yeah. And I know you're like a literature person, so this one is going to be a little bit tricky.
Ooh.
Would you rather only be able to speak in Twilight movie quotes or only be able to speak in riddles?
Oh my gosh. Twilight, because there's some depths there. And I mean, Team Jacob is a real thing.
I had a feeling you was going to say that exact same thing.
No, that's
Yeah, I'm like,
crazy.
I'm gonna pick those. I feel like she's gonna pick the Twilight one.
You're good. You are
So,
good.
uh, and this next one is like a pet peeve of mine. I'm trying to figure out if it's just me or if I'm on the right track. If it's a general like consistency between the human race. But would you rather always have damp socks or always have a pebble in your shoe?
Oh my gosh. Ooh. Um, wow, that's a tough one. I think the socks.
Wow.
What about you?
Definitely the pebble. I cannot stand damp socks. It is from life experience too, because I typically I used to run a lot, so like all of my tennis shoes have been like
Oh,
running shoes and they have holes in them.
yeah.
So rain, puddles, going
Mhm.
hours upon
Mhm.
hours with wet socks, it has ruined.
Yeah. You
So
know it too well. You're like,
yeah,
"Kristen, you may wanna change your answer."
yeah. So
Good point.
and the last one is a little bit of a philosophical one, but it's also kind of a fun one. Would you rather travel back in time to meet your ancestors or travel forward in time to meet your descendants?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. If it didn't change anything, I would rather my ancestors, because I feel like I might be too fearful of what would come, like trying to change things. As I said, trying to change the plans. Like, oh no, I found out that you're not good. I'm gonna like come back to my life and try to like make it different. So with all my planning fixations. So I better stay out of that.
I never considered that, the butterfly effect. I never considered that because I would like to meet my ancestors, but I never considered how might I try to change the future when I go back.
Right. Even if they said you can't change it, that would make me even feel worse. But if you
Yeah.
tell me I can't change my ancestors, I'm like, well, what happened happened. At least I can give them a hug or something.
See, even in this would you rather fun segment, you're still dropping just gold for me. I'm like,
Oh,
that's a
thank
deep breaker
you.
right there. I'm like, the butterfly effect. Now I'm like, it's got to be descendants because then I can't hurt the future, can I?
Yeah,
But,
yes. Yep, yes. That is
anyway,
so cool.
that is the last one. So, how can the audience connect with you and learn more about everything you have to offer?
Thank you so much. Such a fun interview to do. Come to enneagramandmarriage.com and you will find access to everything there, my email list, my podcast, and a lot of freebies. And you mentioned my book, The Enneagram and Marriage, which I have right here if anybody, even yourself, sees it on video. But other than that, you can always go to my Instagram by Enneagram and Marriage too. So I love to be in all those spaces. It's fun to have different iterations of what I do so that it can hit whoever you are, listener out there, just, right where you're at. So thank you so much.
Yeah. But real quick, speaking of your Instagram, I saw I, where you were on the trolley, and then I think it was your husband. And I'm
Yes.
like, that was a funny video.
Yeah, he was
Coming
going
up on the scooters.
faster on the scooters, and I was like, no. He was
That
showing
was
me
funny.
up.
I just
Thank you for the laugh.
I was in class right then. I was like, I can't laugh because the students would be like, "What is wrong with you?" But it was pretty funny.
Aw, well, you are having
So,
so much fun with your students, and I love hearing that about you and getting your update in that way too.
I thank you for not only sitting down and having a conversation with me, but sharing this moment in life and dropping so many gold nuggets. I knew you would, but I didn't realize it's going to be this many. I'm like,
Oh,
wait,
thank you.
this is just a mine of gold right now. So,
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That is so kind.
well, I am going to let you go because you are probably a busy lady. I know you are because you own your own practice, and so you probably got another client to get to, and plus you got a
Oh,
family. So, and
thank
then if you just let me
you.
talk, I won't talk all day long. So,
Oh my gosh, yes, I know, me too, but you're right, I do. I have to get ready for my next interview, so
so
I have had so much fun though, and like you
me
said,
too.
it was a shared moment, and thank you for having me for this, and thank you to
Yeah,
the listeners for being with us.
I'm definitely going to have you back again whenever I get a new idea. So
Okay, thank
just
you.
be looking out for my emails. I'm always going to hit you up.
Oh
You're one
my
of my
gosh.
favorite people.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Braylon. You're a treasure, and you have a wonderful day.
You too. Nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you again.
Well, as you can see, Christa and I have a lot of fun. But that is today's episode of Enneagram Star Podcast. Again, thank you to Christa for having a conversation with me and sharing the moment. But also, thank you for watching, for listening. My allergies are starting to act up again. I appreciate every single person who supports this podcast by pressing play, whether that's on YouTube or on the podcast platform. So you do my heart well, to know that this idea of active waiting and how the Enneagram helps us look at it from a different lens. So meaningful to me right now. I don't know what it is. It's probably all the deep stuff Krista has told me, but I'm just feeling very in touch with the heart right now. So, but I would love to add more value to this podcast to make it better for everyone who watches, everyone who listens. Um, but I could really use your help to add that value. So there are 4 ways you can help to add that value. Well, and the first and easiest way is simply by doing this, what you do, watching, listening to these episodes, because when you do that, as much as you can, whether you just put it on in background volume off. As long as it runs through the entire episode, you're helping with play counts, which will then in turn help me get sponsorships in the future. So that is an easy way to help support and add value to the podcast. You can also help me add value to the podcast by sending in a financial tip, so I can upgrade equipment to make the quality of videos, the quality of sound better, and all that. And you can do that by going to enneagramrestore.com/tip jar. That's enneagramrestore.com/TIPJAR. That link is going to be in the show notes, as well as any other link that's been mentioned in this episode. Another way to help me add value to this podcast is by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and leaving a rate on Spotify, because when you do that, it boosts the numbers. But here's the thing that I like to always say is that I'm not a person to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So if it's a good review, I ask that you leave it. If it's a bad review, I ask that you leave it, because to improve, I've got to know the good and I've got to know the bad. I say it all the time about the Enneagram. It helps make the good better and the bad good. So, and the last way you can help add value by supporting this podcast is simply by following Enneagram Store Podcast on Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and yes, now even Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, that is a great way to see a lot of more of the longer content pieces, because are to get links, because really can't post links on Instagram, and so that's a good way to see links and have them right there in your feed if you follow us on Enneagram Store Podcast across all platforms. Of course, you say Enneagram Store, it's going to be the only one that pops up, because this podcast is that unique. But anyhow, whichever way you decide to support this podcast, I am very thankful, to the moon appreciative of your support. And I can't say in words enough what it means to me. But until the next episode, I want you to remember this: that the Enneagram doesn't define you, but it does bring restoration. It helps reshape your thinking and habits.